All right, welcome to another episode of the Self Storage Insight Podcast. I'm Ben Shirey, and today I'm joined by Rob Esposito. And Rob is the founder of Relocators. And so, Rob, if you don't mind, just kind of give us a little bit of your backstory. How did you get started with the business? How did you kind of come up with Relocators, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. And again, thank you for having me on. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely.
When I was a kid, early 2000s, my grandmother had gotten cancer, and my mother was tasked with emptying her Queens home and moving all her stuff, moving her to Long Island and moving some of her stuff to Long Island, and the rest just loaded up dumpsters. She was a secretary, and from there, she put an ad in the paper, old stuff out brings the money in, let us show you where to begin. And she kind of started like she was one of the first of maybe the first 5 estate sale companies on Long Island. And it was happening at a time where like this whole shift was going on where the depression era was downsizing, who held on to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the new generation, they didn't want anything. So she kind of like rode that bubble. And by the time 2007 came around, I was a bartender and I waited tables and I would clean out my mother's houses on the weekends. And
Okay.
from there, I started doing moving, then storage, then a bunch of other services.
Right.
Yeah. In the
Yeah. So,
industry.
so a little bit about Relocators. Maybe what are some of the services that you offer currently?
Sure. Relocators, we're comprised of like 8 companies, some holdings. And what we do is we do full service moving. We have storage at 5 locations. We do out of state moving. We do a lot of work with restoration companies, packing out high end homes that had fire or water damage, kind of fit with our thing of like trying to, take a stressful situation and make it easier on people. That's even a more stressful situation in some instances.
Right.
And we do estate sales and online auctions as well.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, you were saying like 2007 is about when you got into the moving side of it and kind of got the business kicked off.
Correct. Yeah, I
So
incorporated in '08, but yeah,
uh,
'07 is when I started.
okay. So pretty much headed right into the recession. Right. How much did that play into your business and kind of maybe the growth of it or not a lot?
I mean, I think for the position I was in, it was great. Kind of like when you have nothing to lose. Like, I was waiting tables and bartending. So if I had a job or 2 a week, you know, when you're that early, it it worked for me. And as it got better, I was able to ride that wave up.
Right.
Now I kind of see similar, like we do really well, but the residential moving market, I mean, I've never seen a year like this. I think I think the realtors are being like criminally optimistic. Like it is much worse than they're saying because
Okay.
I haven't seen it like this lately. I mean, I think companies are still busy, but the actual residential market seems very tight right
Looking
now.
good. All right. Well, I think we'll try to come back to that. I kind of one of the questions I always like to ask is, and a lot of my listeners, self storage is kind of, to some people they have multiple, investments, and so they're working other jobs. Running self storage facilities is kind of like a second thing. I know of a lot of people that do it that way. What was kind of your moment? So you're bartending, right? You're working evenings, whatever, and then doing the moving on the side. What was kind of the moment that you realized, like, okay, I need to shift, like this needs to be my full-time thing and I got to cut the bartending loose?
Uh, to be honest with you, I did it like for 6 months,
Okay.
and then I tried to just do Saturday, Sunday, and within like another 5 months, I'd never worked anywhere else again. So
Okay.
within the
So
first year,
yeah, so you recognized it pretty fast as far as the opportunity and right.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm always interested in that too because I know like with myself, I've started a business, entrepreneurial mindset type thing, right? And so there always comes that time where you have to kind of make a decision. Am I going to cut ties with something that's pretty stable and I'm pretty secure in this, and am I going to take this risk and fall flat on my face, right? So I kind of always like to have a little bit of that conversation with what did that transition look like for you? How did it go?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that, and I agree with you. Like the whole like baker that goes bankrupt, concept. Like,
Mhm.
you make great cookies, but can you sell great cookies? And
Right.
that's a big thing with people when they're starting businesses and leaving their job. I just tried, in the beginning it was real rudimentary. I was 23 and I was just trying to make $1,000 a week after I cleared my expenses. You know, it was
Mhm.
back 2008. Um, as I was able to tag along, I think the the dance between, hey, I can, pay someone $150 and then go do some estimates that are worth a lot more and possibly get a job. That took a little bit, but I realized like, hey, I'm being, penny smart and dollar stupid here. I should, you know, figure out a way to free myself up right now and do this. And,
Mhm.
I think you kind of learn that from, trial and error going back and forth.
Right. Were there any kind of like experiences or maybe even people in your life, around that time that kind of you can look back and say like, wow, this was a big moment, or this person really was influential in kind of getting started with your business and making it successful?
Absolutely different at different times and the same throughout. Uh, I worked at like the most famous restaurant in New York, Vincent's Clam Bar, and the owners, I think they were mentors by, looking at them without being mentors. And then as I started and transitioned out of working for them, they became mentors. They sat with me, they answered questions, they were phenomenal. Now, 15 years later, I'm actually partners with them
Okay.
in some
Awesome.
aspects with some of the stuff we do. But I would say that in the beginning. And then I think around 11, 12, I call it like the self-employed years. Like that's where I dove into audiobooks and networking and kind of like learned more of like running a business or not being, like just self-employed sort of.
Right.
If
Yeah,
that
and
makes
and yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting you brought up the audiobooks thing. I mean, I think too, if you look at anybody that's successful as far as on a high level, right, they always kind of preach that, read, read, read. Who are you listening to? That sort of thing. And it's kind of funny to me because I think sometimes like with the self-storage side of it, some of the people that I talk to, it's almost like they're just dabbling in it. They'll purchase a facility, they want to see how it goes, but they're not actually really diving into gaining knowledge about that industry. And so, man, I think that's so important. Like the more I can learn about the industry that I'm getting into is going to determine whether or not it's successful with any business, right? So, if I'm going to just kind of try it out and see, and I'm not actually investing into learning about that, I think that's huge for no matter what industry you're getting into.
I concur 100%.
Awesome. So you
Absolutely.
so you were kind of talking about, yeah, the retail or the real estate industry around you right now is about as bad as you've seen. Um, you know, what does that look like as far as like the moving company side of it? You have other things that can kind of keep the business going through that. What do you feel like is going to be trending there? Like, do you think this is a long-term thing it's going to be looking like this, or is it going to clear up, or what do you think?
I think it'll always clear up. I mean, it's real estate, but I don't think the end is too near. I think it's going to go well into 24. And the one thing that, kind of makes me like question things is you're not hearing about it. Like in '08, everybody knew the world was coming to an end as far as economically. Like I feel like today it's like, oh no, 200 people showed up to an open house, but it's like, okay, because there's only three houses. Like what are the real numbers there? Because I don't feel like you're talking it's being talked about.
Right. Yeah, that is interesting because yeah, even in the self-storage sector, which again is a real estate asset class, right? Um, Everybody kind of realizes we're trending out of, the golden years of storage and stuff from 20 to 22. It was incredible. Everybody's 100% occupancy. Nobody really had to do anything. They could raise their rates, whatever you wanted. And so now we're kind of coming out of that. And so everybody kind of just attributes the downturn to, oh, it couldn't last forever. But yeah, maybe there's something to that. Maybe it is going to be a little bigger than everybody expects.
The other thing is acquisition. I mean, the numbers like don't tell that story. The numbers are skyrocketing. To purchase a place, at least on Long Island and like the outer boroughs, the surrounding area, like we're seeing numbers that you're looking at yourself like, really? It's worth this much,
Mhm.
They're almost doubling in a few years. So uh, that part too, it's like almost inconsistent with what you were saying about it trending downwards.
Right. Absolutely. So with your business and kind of the way that you tie into the storage side of it, do you mainly just use your storage for people that you're moving? Like you don't list that out. You don't do anything as far as letting people just rent storage. space off of you?
Yes and no. It's mostly made up of my clientele. It's like an offshoot of my operational companies.
Okay.
At each location, we have a contractor that rents an office and has some warehouse space and some truck space, kind of maintains the property. We also have like other contractors that just come there for tools and things like that. So we do it on like more of a business level, or we'll rent out a parking lot at one of the facilities and that's theirs, it's subbed out. So we do things like that, we get creative with, but for the most part, like, you walk into the building and it's all ours, the warehouse, and it's all crated or racked, and
Right.
it's not particularly self-storage, but it's the same concept.
Right. Yeah. So just a little bit more of a creative use of the space,
Yeah.
versus just segmenting it up. What do you kind of find as far as, okay, so like the moving industry is trending down with real estate. What is some of the challenges that you're going to face with that? Like, do you feel like there's a way that you can market differently to kind of make up for some of that, or how long can you stay at a sustainable business with that before you have to make some significant changes?
Throughout my career, I've seen, different trends. And, I'm a big proponent on like trying to get along with everybody, and competition is my best referral source and vice versa. So I'll work with people of maybe a service I do to get another service that I do that I'd rather. So with that said, after Sandy, our clean out, Hurricane Sandy that like decimated New York,
Yeah.
our clean outs, got really busy. And then after that, we were packing out houses. Well, with COVID, our online auctions took off because the estate sales dumped, and our out of state moving got busy when the local moving dumped. So it's like I've always seen it go back and forth, which is exactly what I'm seeing now. I just think long term, which I feel we are suited for, is I think it's going to be the full package. Like whether it's an estate or a downsizing, like the whole family's involved, and the services end to end, whether it's storage, moving, clean outs,
Right. So
all
having
the
kind of like a well diversified company helps you a lot through different market turns for sure.
yes,
Yeah,
correct,
absolutely. The other thing, kind of as I'm listening to what you're saying there too, is that as a business owner or an entrepreneur, you have to really be flexible and kind of see what's coming and then adjust your business accordingly, right? Like the with marketing, it always is almost like what's trending and what are people looking for, and how can I shift my business a little bit to fit maybe another opportunity that's on its way. Um,
absolutely,
and so yeah, you got to be creative, but it's also a hustle, right? Like hard work. And maybe if you'd speak to that a little bit. I did listen to one of your other podcasts and you were talking about work ethic and stuff like that. What would you think is like one of your attributing factors to why you have such a hard work ethic?
I would say, I think it was always in me as a kid. I think my dad was, tough with me. Not tough, but he was tough in the aspect that like anything I started, I had to finish. Like if I started baseball, I had to finish the season. If I never played again,
Right.
that's fine. But there was no like giving up. And I remember one story at like 10, 12. I had to rake leaves with my buddies, and we were all getting like $100 each. And it turned out the next day they quit. When I told them, he flipped out, and I went back alone for like 3 weeks after work. And when I was completed, I hated every minute of it. But when I was completed, it was unbelievable. And I remember thinking I was going to go make like 300 or 450. And the guy was like so impressed. He gave me like 800 or something. And
Awesome.
that day I was a millionaire. You know what I mean? Like that day
Right.
it clicked. So I think it's things like that.
Right. Yeah. The never quit thing is something too that my parents were the same way. And I mean, I feel like if you have that option in the back of your mind, you're
Yes.
gonna bail, like it's gonna get tough and you're gonna feel like you're outmatched,
Yeah,
and
I
those
try to
days.
do it with like broccoli now with my kids. I'm like, you try it once and then you don't have to do it. It doesn't work the
That's
same.
awesome. It's funny with your kids. My son, I remember the first time, just this really sticks out to me and kind of my mindset on the same thing. We got Taco Bell, right? And he never had tacos. I think he was 4 years old. And I put a taco on his plate and I said, "You're gonna eat the whole taco," right? And there was lettuce and stuff, so he didn't like it. And he sat there for 2 hours till he finished his taco.
I
And
love it.
now he loves tacos. But it's those moments, right? Where like you can't just quit because there's something that you feel like you don't like about something. You got to grind through those things. And
How
yeah, I
old's your
think
son?
that's right now he's 13. So
Awesome. Good for
yeah,
you. God
yeah.
bless, man.
So
That's
we're
awesome.
working on it, man. That's a parenting is a whole other grind, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, that's what it's
So
all about.
yeah, absolutely. So maybe kind of as we kind of start wrapping things up, what would be one thing you would tell somebody else looking to start a business, whether moving, storage, whatever? What would be one piece of advice that you would give them as they get started out? Maybe something to look out for, or something to help them through that.
As far, I would say that the three biggest things is don't burn bridges. Try to never burn bridges as much as possible. Always try to, leave off even if there's a disagreement in a cordial manner. You never know where, a relationship meets back up. As far as advertising and stuff, there's nothing more powerful than networking. Show me your network, I'll show you your net worth kind of philosophy, and cultivating relationships, not just like, you know, networking to sell your product. It's better you don't even talk about your product. You cultivate the relationship for the longer term.
Right.
And just keep going, because there's going to be so many days you don't want to, just keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Great advice. That's very good. What with your networking side, you say, how important it is. What kind of ways do you do networking in your local area? Do you do a lot of local networking, or more at a larger scale?
A lot of local. I do a lot of like I was a member of BNI for the last 12 years. I used to be much bigger into it, but we have a pretty 90 member chapter, which is pretty big. And I would say, like, just charities, local chambers, events like that, where people are gathering. And I also think, like, I always wrestle with, like, hey, do you do commercials and stuff for ego? I don't know if I see the ROI, or do you do,
Mhm.
media stuff? Why was the purpose? But the fact is, it's like you set up a lunch meeting with somebody or a possible new account, and the fact that you have the commercial and you have that stuff, it precedes you, and it makes it easier for you to, develop a relationship, and talk to somebody. So,
Right.
whether it's me hiring them or them hiring me, or, for their services or mine, I feel like the media part and the branding part is as important, but on like a loss leader kind of level.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then to kind of go back to the other one that you had said about don't burn bridges. I know, even within my business and local community, man, like referrals are such a big part of business still, So if you are burning bridges, there's just that many more people out there that are referring you the other way. Right.
Yeah.
So like
What's your work area? Like,
uh
how
I'm
far do you go?
Altoona, Pennsylvania. I mean,
So,
our self storage, like we have property management software, CC storage, so we work on a national level. I have
yeah,
clients all over the US, but at the same time, I mean, we're involved in local community and things like that as well. But yeah, so we could get bashed online, right? If
yeah,
I do a bad job with something, that can affect my business in a really negative way. So making sure I have, a good referral network and people that are actually happy with the work that we do is huge.
absolutely. I theorize that Google is not going to see it coming, and the Facebook mom groups are just going to take over, like, the small business industry as far as marketing, and, like, as opposed to paying for AdWords. The control, the power, and the community of it it's so powerful, you know.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm seeing, like, on a local level. That's why I asked what your
Oh, okay.
geography was. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we work all over the US, but at the same time, yeah, I'm in a bunch of those Facebook groups and stuff too.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can get people are a little more bold on social media,
Always.
even than they are locally. So yeah, that's always fun. But
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, yeah, as we kind of wrap this up, is there anywhere people can go to kind of check you out, learn more about you and what you do, maybe follow you?
Yes, I'm going to share all my links with you. Our website is usrelocators.com, and my personal Instagram is r.espo5, as well as US Relocators.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show with me
Yeah,
today, Rob. I really enjoyed talking to you, and yeah, hopefully we can do it again sometime.
you as well. I appreciate it.
Awesome. This podcast episode was brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a property management software that helps you pass the fees of credit card processing onto your customers so you don't pay credit card processing fees ever again. If you enjoyed the podcast, there's a link below where you can fill out a form and be interviewed on the podcast with myself. If that interests you, please click the link below and we'll be in touch. We hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Don't forget to check back next week for another interview with another self-storage property owner.